Hey there and welcome to another Dave Does video, and today we are going to be doing 10 things that bands either need to start or stop doing to be more successful. Now this list is my list, it's things that I believe are important, it's come from some experience from being in bands, it's from observations, it's from speaking to other bands as well. Got a little bit of background noise because the window's open as it's very warm here in the studio room today. So just going to let that plane go flying by. Bye bye plane! All those people going on summer holidays still, or coming back from summer holidays. Coffee. So yes, so these are my 10. If you think that I'm talking out my backside, let me know in the comments down below. And if you've got some other things that didn't make it into my top 10 list that you think bands should be aware of, then let me know. Let's kick this one off with the most obvious one, I believe, in this day and age, but it's something that bands still continue to do. So number one, stop putting on random gigs everywhere. This is something I see in bands all the time. They're always just booking gig, book gig, book gig, book gigs. Now, this is a model that refers to bands from the 70s and 80s, etc. So back then, your way to get noticed from an A&R sort of point of view would be to play a show. If you were a person who enjoyed going out and watching music or finding out about new bands, the way you would find out about new bands is you'd go out and visit venues, because there was no other way to find out. You had Melody Maker, you had Rolling Stone magazines. If you were lucky and you're in the 80s, you had Kerrang! If you're in the early 90s, you had Metal Hammer. Plus a smattering of other magazines, and then you also had MTV in the early 80s going into the 90s with things like Headbangers Ball. You had your Top of the Pops, but basically you had a very small area of getting your knowledge of your bands, and the rest you found out by going and watching gigs. Now this was great for the bands at the time because this meant you had a bigger audience, you had bigger opportunities where people would actually come out and watch musicians. Unfortunately, that is not the case these days. People do not have enough expendable income to go out every night of the week and watch random bands. So people also have better opportunities to check things out online and use the internet to find out about bands. They get flooded with information, they get playlists from Spotify, etc, 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 which means going and watching bands is not high on the agenda unless they really know the band. So putting on a random gig is not beneficial to the band. You spend a lot of time travelling there, you play to a man and his dog at the back of the bar and the other bands, and it demoralises the band. So it's not great. Focus your band, get focused on certain gigs instead of playing random gigs, and promote them and get behind those bands. Music videos. Put time and effort into storytelling in your music videos. So if you go back to early or late 80s, early 90s, a lot of music videos would either be of two main types. You'd have storytelling format videos and you'd have performance-based videos. These performance videos would be set up in a live environment to give you a good indication of what the band is like. The storytelling ones would tie in with the song to help tell the story. Some point in the late 90s, early 2000s, it suddenly became this thing where you started playing in black rooms, in fields, in industrial warehouses, and this became the new norm. It doesn't benefit the song in any shape or form. There's no rewatchability from that point of view. It doesn't help the band understand, or people understand what the band's about, and they're not going to just get. It's not going to get shared. It's not going to get shared in multimedia format, and that's what you're really after. So you need something that's rewatchable. So spend some time on your music video, as it's a very important way of helping promote. Don't rush into recording just because you have enough songs. There is a real kind of urgency that bands seem to have, which is get 4 or 5 songs done, let's release an EP, keep writing while that's out, and then once you get 8 songs together, maybe 9 or 10 including what you already had on the EP, you pick 8 of them and then put them out as an album. The problem is what you tend to find is after that period, after about 6 months after that album or EP's come out, is you're not always happy with the songs that were on there. The quality may not have been right at the time because you never spent enough time gestating them, working them, and actually challenging whether certain riffs are good enough. Spend the time on the music, challenge every riff, challenge whether or not it's a filler or is it actual, it adds any value to the song, and your songs will be better. If you want to do an EP, you actually need an album's worth of material, and then pick out what you want on the EP. If you want to do an album, you're really after, let's say if you wanted to put a 10-song album out, really 8 is your starting point, but let's say you wanted to do 10, you're going to need about 15 songs in pretty much fully structured out, and then you will pick your best 10 to go on your album. This will give you 5 songs that potentially need more work to be done to them, and they may appear on later albums, which is what you will find when you're checking out some of the more well-known bands. If you do any of the behind-the-scenes documentary sort of stuff, you'll see that a lot of the times they will have stuff that they wrote 2 albums ago that actually appeared on the most recent album, for instance. It just wasn't ready at the time. Rehearsal spaces. So we'll get a little bit more talk about rehearsals, but as far as your actual rehearsal space, try to set your rehearsal space up as though it is a stage performance. Because this will tie into other facts, but too many people just set the rehearsal space up with setting in around, you'll have the drums and people will be facing the drums, and they use it as working space, they'll work on tracks, etc. But what tends to happen is then when you then get to a live gig, people don't know where their positioning is. They haven't spent enough time actually thinking about the rooms. So when you know you've got a gig coming up, you've spent all that time promoting it, you've spent all that time bigging it up, building up and getting people down to watch it, use your rehearsal, make sure you've set the space up. Now if you've got a massive rehearsal studio, shrink it down so that all your monitors and your cabs are set on the same width as what's on the stage. This will help you practice for when you actually have the gig. You practice your shows as though you were actually playing the gig. So when you're in your rehearsal studio, it's not just a case of running the set. You need to think about the gaps in the songs. You need to think about guitar changes. You need to think about tunings, any issues like that, so that you don't have any dead space. So when you're playing live, if you're going to have talking, who's talking? I've seen a lot of bands where they talk over each other because they're not sure clear on who's going to be talking. You see a lot of issues where it goes quiet, no one knows quite what to say, someone's tuning and they weren't aware that someone was tuning, and everyone's kind of just milling around waiting for the song to start. It's not great for the audience to see that. If you watch a professional band live, they don't have this dead space. Every single talking point is rehearsed and practiced. It might be slightly adjusted each night, but they know where they have talking sections, and they know when to come in, they know when the set talking finishes and how to count in the next song. So it's really important to practice those. Okay, so having a clear image for your band is really important. So when you're doing a photo shoot, if you go nowadays and you look for any band and you see a photo shoot, everyone looks pretty much the same. They're all standing there posing, they're doing these relevant poses like arm, muscular, and you'll get people go on stage in street clothes. My challenge around that is what's interesting for the audience. It may be quite comfortable for the band, and a lot of bands will say it's about the music, it's not about the image. I disagree. I think the music is very important, but when you're putting on a show, image tells part of the story. And in all honesty, I've seen bands who have gothic singer, punk guitarist, new metal guitarist, bass player that looks like they're in a grunge band, and a hardcore drummer and they all look completely different, and it's confusing for a viewer. So when you're trying to watch the band, yes, you're trying to enjoy the music, but you just don't get, they're not a cohesive unit. So if you decide you want to go for an image and you want to keep street clothes, have a set image for your street clothes. It just makes it a little bit more accessible for the audience, and it makes it feel that you are a single unit on stage putting on a show. So talking about the having that image, stop doing all the same band poses. So every single band photo that I see nowadays, they're all the same. They're pretty much all standing there, slightly side on, staring at the camera, trying to look mean and moody. Occasionally someone else will look off in the random distance somewhere else. It tells me nothing about who the band is. So if you're thinking about doing your band photos, try to think about how each of your shots or each of your photos should tell the story about who you are as a band. If I was to get that picture and it said that you were on tour, what in that picture is going to make me want to go, oh, let me find out about them? If it's just 3 guys and a girl, or a 5 band, or an all girl band, whatever it might be, just standing there looking at the camera moodily, there's nothing about that that's going to make me want to go and check them out. So have a think, try to tell a story with your band photos. Some of the best band photos that tell a story, a great example is Madness, the band. Album cover, they're all leaning into each other like in a funny walk. It tells me what type of music they are. They tell me they're a little wacky, they tell me they're a fun band, and it makes me want to go and find out a little bit more about them. Things like that are really important. So that's one thing that bands should definitely start thinking about more about, is your band photos need to tell a story. Okay, having something to promote is vitally important. So starting a band, you tend to really want to just get out and start gigging. Now, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, you just want to play live, you're going to take the risk that you may not be ready. You haven't got anything to sort of talk to the audience about, anything to get behind, anything to promote. You just want to go out and play music. Now, the problem with that is people need to have something more to listen to. So after they've seen you live, they need your EP, they need your album. So this again, you're going to turn around and tell me, well, you just told us to wait. You told us to say, don't rush and record an EP. I did. I would tell you, when you form a band, spend 6 months writing. Spend a year writing before you even start playing a gig, and write your first album before you've even got on the stage. By the time you sit on the stage for that first time, you should be ready to go. You should have everything put together, everything down, and have an album or an EP ready, so that your first show you're ready to start promoting. Have your t-shirts, have everything going, have a music video done for your first ever gig. People are going to say that's insane, because what about if the band falls apart? Well, you'll have probably found that out in the rehearsal studio. The gig is just the end result. Because remember, you only get one chance to make a first impression at a live performance. And if you have a bad gig and someone sees you, they're less likely to come back, obviously, to see you again. But if they do see you again, their answer is going to be, if they say, how did they do? They'll go, they weren't bad. They're a lot better than their first show. They'll still refer to their first gig. However, if you have a great first gig and then they come and see you and you have a bit of a bad show the next time, they'll go, probably just an off day. They will give you the benefit of the doubt. So you need to ensure that your first show is amazing and you put that effort into every single gig. Okay, the next one is to write constantly and use home recordings. So nowadays, with the way that you can record, I mean, I set up an entire studio setup which only cost £200, including electric drums, bass, a computer, a keyboard, the lot. And if you're interested in watching that, check it out on my channel. So there's no real excuse for not being able to record music. Everyone can do it nowadays. There's no barrier. I'm sorry. You can put headphones on, so there's no noise issues, and you can email tracks to each other. There's file transfer sites that do it for free, like WeTransfer, so you can send ideas around, and you should be doing that and getting your albums and your music written, so that when you go into a rehearsal studio, you might, the first time you go in there, just kind of working out, you might want to work out a few little riffs and stuff like that, but generally your rehearsal studio should be used for getting ready for live shows. You shouldn't be using rehearsal studio space for writing. It's something that you used to have to do because no one had any access to equipment at home. A lot of times people in the days would have only place that they could actually use their amps and stuff like that was in the studio, so no one had the option but to go in there and write, because no one could write at home. That's not the case nowadays, so people need to stop using rehearsal studios as writing studios and use them purely for rehearsing for gigs. Okay, so going and watching other bands live and network with them is vitally important. So if you're a band that's just starting out there and you're, let's say for instance in this area in the Hertfordshire scene, you need to go out and watch other Hertfordshire based bands, get chatting with them, find out about who the promoters are. We'll talk about promoters a bit later. Well, we might do on this video, I'm not even sure. But yeah, you really want to get out there and network as much as possible. This will help you for when you're booking in other gigs, help you with gear share, etc. And also find out which venues are the ones that are worth playing when you are actually gigging, to kind of actually get out there and put on the best shows. So you're not playing to places that don't pull in audiences, and you'll know where to promote and who to promote to. So get out there and network. Okay. Don't play shows in the same area within 2 months of each other. It's a false economy. It doesn't work. Now, the reason I say this, and there will be bands out there saying, no, it's fine to do that. I personally have not experienced any good results from this. I've seen bands play to empty rooms. I go around, and because I do filming of live performances, and I see a lot of the same bands playing a lot of the same venues, all within sort of a 10-mile drive of each other, which is quite a short distance generally, and they're playing gig after gig after gig. I've seen bands play 4 or 5 times in a month within a kind of a 10-mile radius. You are playing to this, you're asking the same audience to come out. Your likelihood of actually building up any crowds is quite low. The thing for me is that you playing 4 to 5 shows in a month may sound awesome, but if you're not playing to many people in the band are going to start getting disinterested in the band and not feeling like they're getting any sort of return. So it's beneficial to play key shows and have a great turnout, get heavily behind the promotion. Okay, utilising all your aspects of social media is vitally important. So when you're putting out music videos, you want to be hitting across all formats, not just once. You need to be repeating that, commenting on other people's posts. Find out who bands are similar to you when you're on your Spotify's, making sure you're getting onto the right playlists. All of these aspects need to be covered off as topics. And make sure you regularly post. Make sure you talk to your fans. So when you are getting people sending you comments on there, don't just like the comment, respond to that comment. People will get to know. Make sure you've got a YouTube channel. Make sure you've got relevant content going onto your YouTube channel. Putting just rehearsal footage is not great unless you've got something of a bit of interest. The occasional rehearsal footage is fine, but you want to make sure you've got your music videos on there. Maybe throw some tutorials on there. Put things that people are going to be interested on. Set yourself up with a Patreon. It's a beneficial way of helping raise awareness and also getting people to support your band. This can help raise funds for your band to help you go out and play shows. Okay, promotion. So there is a lot of talk about promoters and how promoters aren't doing their jobs to help promote shows. In most cases, most of these promoters aren't promoters, they are booking agents, and their job is to book you on a gig. They may call themselves promoters and they'll put up a poster and they'll flag it up. In all honesty, it is your responsibility as a band to promote your band. You're not paying that promoter anything to do it. Yes, they want to try to get some people down, but at the end of the day, how are they going to promote you? What have you given them to promote? Have you got music videos that they can help promote with? If you've given them everything they can to promote, then that's great. But if you've got nothing to show for it, you've got no live footage, you've got no music videos for them to get after, what are they going to do? They have got nothing to do apart from put a poster out there and hope that you've got a crowd. So it's down to the band, it really is down to the band in the earlier days to do that form of promotion. Yeah, as you get bigger, weirdly, then the promoters makes life a lot easier for them to promote it. They can put it into music magazines, etc. But in young bands, in the local format scenes, their promoter is basically a booker. Don't think of them as a promoter and stop putting the onus on them for badly promoted shows. There are some that do it brilliantly. There are some that don't do it at all. But really, my point is bands need to be promoting their shows. If you book a gig with a promoter, it's up to you to drive people into that gig. And finally, plan a tour only once you've got interest from people in those locations. A random series of gigs is not a tour. So if you play 20 gigs over a 3-month period, it's not really a tour. Unless you've got the same support people in there and you're thoroughly behind it, because obviously you may not be able to book 3 weeks in a row, you may only be able to get time off at certain times. So I understand that you need to logistically have to sometimes spread these tours out. But ideally, what you need to know is if no one's really interested in you in Cardiff, then why are you booking a show in Cardiff? What made you think that you'll be able to go and play a gig there? It happens, people do, and you might on that tour have an amazing turnout in one place and a bad turnout in the other, and you just take that with a pinch of salt. You have to kind of get on with it. But if you're going to invest money and you're going to go out on the tour and you're going to spend all that money on hotels, etc., sleeping in buses and whatever it might be, and fuel economy, have you really worked out if that tour is viable? So try to look at where you're getting hits from, on your social media, and have you done everything you can on the social media platforms, your music videos, etc., to get interest in the band. Now, that's my list for today. Now, I'm sure there are other things that I've missed. I'm sure that I've actually gone over my 10. I thought I only had 10, but I'm fairly certain I went past 10 quite a bit early on. But that was my original list of things that bands need to start and stop doing. I don't know if this was beneficial, but I wanted to share it because it's been something I've been seeing so many bands making some of these mistakes early on, and I would love to hear from people who disagree with me and let me know why. I'd love to hear some success stories on some of those things that I've said that you shouldn't do, and I would love to hear some of the other things that you reckon we should add to that list. Thank you very much for watching, and that of course is how Dave does it.